I feel like this video is going to reveal just how much of a baby I was when I was a kid.
You're a baby.
Kids seem to have a fascination with scary things. There's a reason why Five Nights at Freddy's is so popular. I was terrified of everything as a kid. I would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, even if I just caught a glimpse of a horror movie. My parents used to watch X-Files, and if I just heard one note from that theme song, I'd be up all night.
I'm scared!
But even I watch things like Goosebumps, but that's intentionally scary. Sometimes scary and traumatizing things get slipped into innocent looking kids shows. Here's some of the most traumatizing scenes in kids movies and shows, and I'm sure I won't cover them all, so if there's some that horrified you, let me know in the comments. Sorry in advance if I bring up some deep childhood trauma. First up, we have one that's very timely if you're watching this as it comes out. It's from one of my favorite Christmas movies, Home Alone. This movie stars Macaulay Culkin, who actually just got a star on the Walk of Fame, which is pretty nice to see. I know he had a rough time for a while. Also, did you know he's married to London from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody? And he even has kids with her? Anyway, as you probably know, Home Alone is about a boy named Kevin who gets left home while his family goes on vacation. The scene that terrified me as a kid was the one where Kevin starts to realize no one is home, so he heads down to the basement calling for his family when he sees the furnace come to life. He tries to tell himself it's just in his imagination.
Only my imagination. Only my imagination.
Before he goes running out of the house. If you're seeing this for the first time as an adult or teenager, it doesn't seem so scary, but for a kid, it's nightmare fuel. I think it hits home for me because I had a really scary basement as a kid. At the very back of my basement, there was an unfinished room with the furnace in it, and the only light was in the middle of the room hanging down from the ceiling, like one of those string ones, and you had to pull it. So you had to walk halfway into the room completely pitch black before you could even turn on the light. Also, my brother told me there was a man named Boris who lived behind the furnace, so that didn't help. I still think about Boris sometimes and what he's up to. Anyway, clearly I wasn't the only one who's scared of furnaces. It's a fear that exists in a lot of kids, and this horrifying scene didn't help. This next one, I don't totally understand why it stuck with me for so long. It's from the show Arthur, of all places. It's the last place you'd expect to be traumatized, and maybe that was part of it.
I did not expect that.
It was from the episode titled Arthur's Knee. In the episode, Arthur goes to the dump to find a bike tire, knowing his parents wouldn't let him go. He climbs down into the pit to get the tire. The music turns into something out of The Exorcist. And on his way back up, he cuts his knee on a can of lima beans. Arthur lets out a scream like the head crabs from Half-Life. What terrified me the most was the look of the cut. It had a red infected ring around it and it just looked disgusting. In my little kid brain, I thought this was the end of him. I thought they were gonna have to amputate his legs. A lot of kids have a story about getting hurt doing something they weren't supposed to do, so I think this stuck with a lot of kids. To this day, I can't look at a can of lima beans without thinking about this episode. Also, as a kid, I found DW super annoying, but as an adult, she's absolutely hilarious. She's the best character in the whole show. She's savage.
Francine, can I ask you a question?
Sure, anything.
Why don't you go back to your own house and stop bothering us?
Now for a real throwback one, and this is one of the worst ones. This is from The Never Ending Story, which is a fever dream from start to finish. There's a bunch of scenes to choose from, but by far the worst and most traumatizing was the scene where Atreyu's horse, Atrax, gets stuck in the mud. It's even darker than I remember. Here's how I remembered it in my head. They're walking through the swamp and the horse starts to sink in the mud. The horse starts struggling and tries to get out, and Atreyu tries his best to pull him out. The horse eventually can't resist anymore and gets pulled under the surface. Horrifying enough, but what I realized when watching it back is that the horse didn't really get stuck. He kinda just gave up on life. The swamp of sadness drains your will to live, and the horse just stopped moving. It succumbed to the effects of the swamp and just let itself get pulled under, despite Atreyu's pleas. Atreyu cried and told him he loved him, but the horse went under anyway. Bro, what the hell? This is supposed to be a kid's movie. You can't drop that cruel reality on a kid. We're getting metaphors for depression here.
Well, now I'm depressed.
These are the kind of things you don't see in modern kids movies, at least not this graphic. It almost hits harder rewatching this as an adult. Definitely one of the most traumatizing kids movies, and this was one of the worst scenes. You're no less of a man if you cry during this scene. On the newer side, we have another sad one, The Bridge to Terabithia. It came out in 2007. Yeah, I was definitely a little kid when this one came out.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
No, but I did read the book in school before the movie came out, and I don't remember much of it except the traumatizing part, which kickstarted my consciousness and made me see the fragility of life when I was too young.
Life's a fragile thing here.
I feel like this was the root of anxiety for a whole generation. It's a coming-of-age story about two friends who go to an imaginary world in the forest. In order to get there, they have to swing across a small river on a rope. One day the girl falls while swinging and hits her head and dies. The scene plays out in a very subtle way which almost makes it worse. It's not big and dramatic like the never-ending story. We don't see her fall. We see the aftermath where her friend, played by pre-Hunger Games Josh Hutcherson, gets told about the news of her passing. It's a lot like it would happen in real life.
I'm sorry, son.
No, you're lying. She's not even dead, you're lying. Jess!
Also, I keep seeing these weird videos of Josh Hutcherson going around that are like some weird edits. I don't know, I don't get it.
Why not do the cricket thing? Keep doing it. Yeah, don't stop. That's cool.
I don't know, maybe I'm the only one seeing this. If you do, let me know. What makes it worse is, up until this point, the movie has been pretty child-friendly. There was a bit of family drama, but you wouldn't expect anything like this to happen. And the marketing for the movie didn't help. The trailer makes it look like a fun fantasy movie like Harry Potter or the Chronicles of Narnia, and it came out just after that time too. So parents were bringing their young kids to the theaters expecting a fun family movie only to scar their kids for life. I can just picture the car ride home, just like, "Mommy, what does death mean?" This next one's so weird, I wasn't sure if I imagined it or if it was actually real. I don't know if you knew, but there was a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. And if you like to, partake before you watch movies, this might be a good one for that. The original came out in 1939, and the sequel, Return to Oz, came out almost 50 years later, in 1985. Sometime in the 90s, that movie made its way to a local Blockbuster where my parents rented it because they loved Wizard of Oz when they were kids. I watched it, and then they had to pay for therapy for the rest of my life. But really, this movie's so goddamn weird, I'm not even sure how this got made. The character designs are horrifying enough. Just look at the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion. Apparently it was more based off the book than the old movie, because the new one was made by Disney and the old one was MGM, so they couldn't just take those same characters, otherwise that would have been a copyright issue, but the book was in public domain. Yeah, this was back when Disney made some weird movies. There's one scene in the movie that stuck with me more than anything else. They were called wheelers. They were this weird human-like thing with wheels instead of hands and feet. They kind of played the same role as the flying monkeys did in the original, but these were so much worse. They had these weird masks on their head and made these horrible animalistic noises, but they could also talk, and their wheels made a screeching noise as they zipped around. I don't remember actually sitting down and watching this movie, but my brain must have done its best to block out this movie, but that traumatizing part just got through. Looking back on it now, they kind of just look goofy, but as a child, it was horrifying. Honestly, I think this is something that's missing in modern kids movies. I think we need to scare kids again. They're getting too bold, and we need to take them down a notch.
Suck brick, kid!
I don't watch a lot of new kids movies, so I don't really know. If you know some creepy scenes from modern movies, let me know in the comments. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.